they ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Absolute Quality and welcome back to week 3 of our Overwatch Tank Climb Challenge. And by the intro of today's video, you may have an idea on what happened this week. We lost. We lost a lot. I'll be honest, I didn't think we would lose rank so tremendously bad in week 3. That was not on my bingo card for the season. Just an extremely poor showing for 10 straight games. That's right, you heard me. A 10-game loss streak took us way down. Let's get into the rank change and the wins/losses data. Last week, we ended our week 2 journey with a rank of Plat 4. This week, we ended with a rank of, drumroll please, Plat 5. This week, we had a high of Plat 3 and a low of Gold 1. I only fell 1 division, so not a terrible thing. However, that was due to the fact of the grind back on the very last day. We were actually Gold 1, and I was able to get it back into Plat 5, thankfully, with the last 2 wins. For wins, we came away with 25. Losses were at 29, and the total games played were actually 54. So it was my highest games for the week. So hopefully I can average about 50 games a week, but this next week we might have some different changes coming. Let's go ahead and check out the days. We started the week off super promising. We had a 3-2 on Tuesday and a 5-4 on Wednesday, and that was helping me steadily climb. I actually made it to Plat 3 in those 2 days. But that was dashed with a fall from no other than to describe from hell. I won once on Thursday and proceeded to lose 10 games in a row spanning 3 different days. I only played 4 games on Thursday because I just felt terrible. And Friday was an absolute crapshoot. Saturday, I sat down though and grinded, amassing 21 games in a single day and somewhat finding my bearings. I ended the week with 2 2-3s, but man, this week was extremely difficult. I really hope we can bounce back from this, guys. This hurt me a lot mentally, I will not lie. I think we need to change up the strategy, find some inner peace this next week, just, collect myself before this mid-season patch. Let's take a look at some of the maps. We have some interesting data this week because we had some new maps challenge the winners from the last 2 weeks. Kings Row still showing out with 4 picks all the way. It's just still going to just be up there. It's just a classic. Everyone picks it. But surprising this week, Lijiang Tower and Nepal tied Kings Row with 4 as well. So 2 control maps actually took the top spots this week, so that was kind of cool, and this data coming up next is going to back it up. So these map types, let's bring in the graph for you guys. This week, Control, like I said, was not backing down. Control actually edged out Escort by 1 this week, but Hybrid still remains the king. Kings Row, Eichenwald, Neon Junction, etc. The one where you have to cap a point before you start pushing a payload. They're still seeing the most play after 3 weeks of data. So the mid-season collection compilation that we're going to do next week should be interesting to see how drastic that stat actually is. On to the bans. This section is about the same as last week, more or less, really. Lots of the same characters taking bans, but some new ones at the top here with the less statistics there. But Zarya is the most banned as well. It's my most banned. I was banning Zarya every time, and as well as Hog, so I'm not surprised to see both of them up there quite heavily. But I do think I'm going to change things up next week. I think I'm going to stop banning Zarya, for one. I don't think Zarya is going to be, honestly, something that I have to worry about. I think I'm going to go ahead and exclusively ban Mauga and Hawk. I don't think I want to play against those 2 tanks anymore. I think those 2 tanks really suck. They're not fun to play against. And I can deal with Zarya. She's annoying and she can get super aggro, but man, do I not have an answer for a good Hog or a good Mauga. And, Maybe some diva practice is in my future here as well to try to mitigate some of that Mauga stuff. My picks were actually a little different this week. I did want to clarify this graph real quick, just for you guys here. You can see there is more data than actual maps played. So we only played 54 maps, but if you add up all these numbers, that's way more than 54. That's because I can pick and play multiple characters per match. So if I pick Rhine and Domina for one map, they both count as a statistic that I picked and played them. I didn't actually collect most of that. It was only if I played them for a significant amount of time in the match. Like if I just swapped at the very end, I didn't put them in there. But this week, I actually shared the top spot with Domina and Ramatra. They were actually very, very much kind of even. Picked them about, somewhat similar. Ryan and Mauga were down there for second place. I am ashamed for playing Mauga. I am ashamed. But if I don't play Mauga against other good Maugas, my team gets destroyed. I'm terrible at Diva, so I have to mirror it, and it's not fun. Seeing Anna banned is now starting to make me not happy. When the last 2 weeks she was terrorizing me, but I think now, at this point in time, she is the lesser evil. Moving on to the division spread. As you can see by our donut here, we had a diverse amount of spreads occur in our games. A quick explanation, if you are new, I'm tracking how many divisions are played in a single game. So, example, a Plat 5 to a Plat 1 game would be 4 divisions. I don't factor in the bottom division since it is a spread from the lowest one. So, in that same example, Plat 5 isn't counted as the spread, but Plat 4, 3, 2, and 1 would be 4 divisions spread from that initial one, making it a 4 division game. But looking back at the graph, the vast majority of games here were within 2 divisions, followed up by almost all of the remaining games in 3 and 4. Some wacky ones out there with a 7, so that was a little bit crazy. I am solo queuing, by the way, so a wide match should not exist for me. So that is basically almost all the way on the end of the spectrum. Now for my most favorite stat, percentage to win. To give you guys a refresher, I'm tracking those beautiful little tags at the end of the game. The high percentage ones, you're expected in reversal, so you're expected to win those games. Your low percentage, your uphill battle and consolation, so basically game saying, you know what, we tried, you're gonna lose this one anyway. The little tags that make you feel so warm and fuzzy inside. I'm also tracking the neutral games as well. Last week, I was surprised to find out that we actually had more games in the low category than the high, so we were actually expected to lose more games than win them. But this week, it was about even. However, the low being more than the high is not what's concerning me this week. There's actually a different statistic concerning me if you're looking at this graph. Last week, we had 27 neutral games and 20 games that were either low or high. So that was, more neutral games than the low and the highs. This week we had 31 games being decided before the matches even began. Only 23 were balanced from the start. This is the concerning stat. So many of these games were just being decided before the game actually started, which is actually crazy. So how many of these games did I win? I won 9 of the high games, so just over 50% of those games I was expected to win and received reversals for losing, so that is about what it should be. It should be around like 50 to 55%, I would assume, is kind of like my win rate on those games. I only won 5 of the 16 games I was expected to lose. So we had a losing percentage of 66%, or just a little bit more than that. So a 33% win rate in those games, which hurts so much. In my neutral games, I also failed there, so that was tough. That's, basically kind of where a lot of the games that I probably should have won, they were close. Maybe just 1 or 2 team fights would have won the game in some direction. Again, this stat is simply for us to see how the matchmaking is working, and I'm curious if the holiday was actually a factor here. Saturday was the 4th of July for us in America, in the United States, and that usually means a large percentage of the population is off on Friday, and also just by, the rules of vacation and trying to get a longer weekend, people are taking off Wednesdays and Thursdays, so That could mean more people were playing that don't normally play on those days, could be potentially skewing my games. Maybe, maybe not, but it's interesting nonetheless because there was a major holiday this week, and so there were a lot more people that were either home or on vacation or things like that. So, what are we going to do for next week, for week 4? It's coming up, and then we get the mid-season patch. So, here's my plan. I think this week I may take a back seat to ranked and really limit my play in the ranked world. I clearly still need more practice. I still seem to fail in the biggest moments in the game and lose the marginal ones. There were a lot of games in there in my notes when I do after the match notes. There were a lot of that said, I lost the game. It was a tough team fight. There was one game where I was playing Mauga, I had to mirror the Mauga, and I frickin' ran into a room, stomped, and then got stuck in the room because they blocked me in there, and it was a 5v1 in that little room, and we lost the game in overtime, so that was really just on me. And I need to control what I can control, and that means winning my 1v1s, playing smart positionally, and actually confirming my picks when I need to. I've noticed that there's a lot of times where I may not be winning a 1v1 and I'm changing my target focus to something else and not actually confirming that pick, and then I'm also sometimes putting myself in extremely poor positions where my healers can't get to me, my DPS can't fight the people I'm fighting. It's just a mistake all around. I'm only going to play 35 games, ranked games this week. I'm going to do just 5 per day. We're just going to do 5 for the 7 days and then quick play for the rest. So I'm going to play a majority of quick play this week, and I'll actually mark the statistic. Maybe I'll just do like a separate section of statistics on the quick play games that we're playing, and if we're just winning them or losing them. I'm not going to really track much else. I might track some notes on what I'm playing so that it might be a little bit more, understand what I'm actually doing, but we're just going to do that, and I want to make sure I'm just really practicing these characters and I'm understanding where I should be before we get into actual rate games where it really matters. And also just to really maybe reaffirm why I'm losing. I don't want to just keep making the same mistakes. I also want to practice some other heroes because next week we may see some interesting changes with tank buffs and nerfs, so that could shake things up dramatically. It could take some specific tanks, throw them out of the meta, and bring some new ones in, which could be huge for maybe me. It could be huge for the characters that I want to play. It could be huge for the characters I hate playing against. So it could really change things. So I want to just tone it down before we get into that specific section so we can kind of see what changes were being made. So that is going to be the end of our week 3 recap. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're enjoying the content as we move forward with this challenge. I still have hope we can climb here. We can climb more, but this is a climbing challenge for a reason. I have to prove I can do it. But thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do what you gotta do, and I'll see you in the next one.